I was thinking to myself, I said, okay, I think I may have made a mistake scheduling both shows on the same day. Because it's like kind of like, Smokebox and then Dr. Green.
I saw that. I saw
like
wow.
this. Okay.
Today we got Jesse from Blood In, Blood Out in the Smokebox. Cannot wait. It's been a long time coming. It's gonna probably talk about Blood In, Blood Out. They just had a screening at Cal State LA, which I was very bummed out that I didn't go to because that's the college that I went to and all that. But I heard it was great.
Oh, yeah. Bam. And then Jimmy wrote a bunch of original poetry. But crazy. Yeah? It's true. Look at that. That's what I'll be talking a lot about, Hatton. Bam. And Noah just got out, dude. No one was doing.
So he went to jail, huh?
Dude. Yeah, he just got out. He's looking good.
Because we were asking about that kid, like what happened to him? He did like 2 or 3 movies and then you didn't see him.
But look, a lot of Adon's original art. Jesse Borrego right here, celebrating 30 years of Chicano excellence. About to drop into the Smokebox right here on BREALTV. Vatos Locos Forever. Yeah, baby, loving it. BREALTV. Mero carnal right here. About to have some fun. But a friend of mine said he wanted to smoke.
Yeah.
So what's the concept? What was the original concept of the Smokebox?
What we used to do back in the day was after, like, let's just say we finished mixing the songs in the studio, we'd come to the car and listen to the songs. You know what I mean? And smoke out while we're listening to them, and then, like, you know, talk about what we liked or didn't like. Did it work or not work? You know, is this going on the album or not going on the album? So we thought let's do a conversation in the car while smoking.
Liston.
Get it.
Hot signs going off. Let's go ahead and close the signs, please.
Welcome to this year's brand new Smokebox for the year. I'm Dr. Green Thumb. Hello, and I'm here joined with my good friend Jesse Borrego. What's up, bro?
Vato loco.
Much love to my bro. We've known each other for a long time, and I mean, we've watched each other come up for a long time. I was watching you first, and I want to say congratulations on the 30-year anniversary for Mi Vida Loca. Last year was for Blood In, Blood Out. And man, you just keep hitting them, bang bang,
Boom, boom.
boom boom.
Well, it's good to know, you know, you guys are celebrating 30th anniversary too last year. So to me, it's inspiring to know that
Cheers to that.
Bang.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
So,
You know,
loco.
a lot of great art was getting put out, and that, you know, that particular year, man. I gotta say, man, it was amazing, and you just kept coming, you know, with different things. But what I want to talk to you about first was your first look was Fame, right? It was the very first time we all had seen a Latino like in a role like that and a show like that. I mean, it was revolutionary. It was different, you know, based off of the movie coming into a TV show, and to get a Latino lead in there.
Crazy.
That was awesome to watch you get that. Let me ask you this though: were a lot of the people on the set with you guys doing the scenes, were they actual students or were they pros?
We had both. I mean, that was the great thing about a show like that. You know, there was definitely, at that time, there was a lot of popularity in, you know, high schools of performing arts.
Yeah.
So even in San Antonio, Texas, where I'm from, they were converting a lot of even, you know, barrio high schools into some sort of an arts magnet. There was a recognition that arte and cultura can influence these young people, especially in their situation, you know, and that was the same in the ghettos, you know, when you're talking about New York. And so that's what Fame was representing. If you looked at the movie, the Alan Parker movie, he was talking about these kids coming from these, you know, these neighborhoods reaching for their dreams. And dude, that's us.
Yeah.
So to me, I lived Fame, even though I was in a Chicano neighborhood, even though I was coming up through the culture, you know, but my father, like I said, was a musician. So I saw it from an artistic point of view. So when I saw that flick and then had an opportunity to audition for the show, Definitely.
Yeah.
And I didn't try to pretend like I was a Puerto Rican from Nueva York, which is really what they would have expected.
Yeah, that's kind of what
I
they
was
wanted you to
stone
be.
cold Chicano.
Yeah.
Jesse Borrego sang to them in Spanish off the bat.
Yeah.
I sang one of my father's songs that he had recorded.
On your casting.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So right away they went, uh-oh. And then I stopped in the middle and I said, oh, by the way, I can sing in English too. And busted out a Gap Band ballad that was hitting at that point.
Oh, nice.
Gap Band
Which
wasn't really
one?
known. Nothing Comes to Dreamers.
Nothing comes to dreamers.
Nothing comes to dreamers but a dream. Oh, oh. Everything must change, but nothing comes to dreamers but a dream. And homeboy from, Wilson from the Gap Band, he had a beautiful voice.
Yeah, he did.
So to be singing a ballad,
Uncle Charlie.
if you were, Uncle Charlie. So if you were into funk music, if you were into oldies like we were coming up in the 70s and 80s, for him to sing a ballad. So at that time, like I said, as an artist, I was absorbing everything. My father's music. Pop music on the radio.
You know what? That's crazy because I think we all did absorb a little bit everything. Like, so if you had brothers and sisters that were older than you and they listened to a certain...
My carnala was the alpha
I mean?
performer, home.
Right?
She
Your
taught
mother-
me the disco dance.
Your mother, father,
yeah.
listened to their styles, and you sort of like, if you were in the car with them or at home with them and they were cranking it, you sort of, listened to that. Because I remember going through the same shit. I got older brothers and sisters, and they were always into like the oldies and stuff like that. They didn't listen to a lot of the rock shit. It was mostly oldies and soul. My father, he liked the doo-wop shit, and my mother liked the Caribbean, and she liked the Beatles and things like that. So all these different, I think a lot of
You
us,
hear all of that in your music.
I think a lot of us grew up just like that, where we got our parents' influences, but we we're having experiences with all these different music genres, man. I think that's why a lot of us come up so open-minded to music like that.
So when we evolved as artists, and like I said, at that time, I was 22 years old, bro.
Hell yeah.
And here I am next to Janet Jackson on stage.
Yeah.
So we were in the groove. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So when you guys were ready to come out, you already had evolved your art to the point where now this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you were basically representation for us even before we realized it was representation. It sort of opened up the gates for a lot of us, like in saying there's gems in the Latino community of all sorts.
Yeah.
Whether it's Puerto Rican cats or Mexican cats, Colombian, Cuban, and the list goes on. You know what I mean? They're seeing that there's gems there.
And Fame was that type of, there was very few shows
It's a launching pad
in
for you
television,
guys.
that were diverse like that.
Do
And
you feel
we
you
had black leads, we had Latinos, we had Jewish characters,
Yeah.
we had female characters
That's
that were
what
very
was
strong.
that was
Debbie
what was
Allen.
that was what was dope about it, is that like it wasn't based off of any one group of people. It's based off of all these kids from different places and trying to live a dream.
And you couldn't help but have the LA influence, because even though it was based in New York, and we'd shoot about 3 weeks before the season started, we were shooting it right here in Culver City. We were at MGM Studios. Sony was MGM back in the day with the big old lion. So that's where we were, in the middle of Culver City, filming this on these New York inside sets.
Really?
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Because
So-
from the outside world, everybody thought you guys were in New York City.
I used to say when I'd walk on the set, I'd go, "Hey, this doesn't look right. The streets in New York are dirtier than this. We need a couple of ratas here.
Hey, at that
We need a
time,
couple of ratones."
at that time, definitely was.
Yeah.
They cleaned it up, but
They
at that
cleaned
time,
it up,
shoot.
bro. It was.
Hey, do
I
you-
miss the old Times Square though, bro. It was
Old
a
Times
little
Square
rowdy,
was,
but
it was gritty. Hell yeah.
good.
Hey, do you feel like you could have went to one of those schools, or did you go to a performing arts school?
No, luckily I was able to, in school, I had good teachers, man, that recognized, like I said, my sister was an alpha performer, so she got me into choir. And once these maestras figured me out and said, this is where this kid is good. They were always putting me in, I was always in the talent shows. I was always the kid doing the announcements. In high school, I was doing the most popular because I wasn't the one that wasn't afraid to pull my pants down in front of everybody,
The personality kid.
I was the personality kid. You know what I'm saying? But coming from the barrio, you filter all that through your personality of who you are in the hood.
Yeah.
And to me, it was always about celebrating who we were. My dad was a barrio intellectual. My dad andaba in La Circle, and he tiro tiempo and all that stuff. But my dad was an artist and a musician.
So it was in your blood to begin with.
So our culture was a part of me. So the same thing as I tried to navigate myself as an artist, it was like, oh, okay, I'm living on two sides right now. I got two languages I can play with. I got two cultures I can code with. I got vatos locos that are also músicos, that are also rap artists, that are also artists. So I grew up in that onda. When I met Adan Hernandez, even though I didn't know him, it turned out that we knew all the same artists. Jesse Trevino, Mel Casas, all the Chicano artists now that you see in the books as the first Chicano artists. You go to Chiche's museum,
museum,
and he's got a lot of their art. There's a big Tejano collection along with the Los Angeles
the
movement.
Chicano culture,
So between knowing the movements, and even when I started coming to LA in the 80s, the Osco people, Patsy Valdez, Gronk, they were all coming from some sort of late 70s movement into the 80s.
Yeah.
So that's what we grew up when. By the time we were hitting it in the early 90s and we were doing our stuff, we were ready to create the next generation of cultural influence. We didn't know it then because you guys were just doing music and I was just doing as many authentic characters as I could.
Yeah.
Because think about it. I went from Blood In, Blood Out, Crucito, to El Duran, who was a pinto, right?
Yeah.
Who was much harder than Crucito and had no art in him other than the poetry that he would write.
Yeah,
to his
Crucito
chick.
was an artist and Duran was an actual gangster.
Yeah, this vato was hardcore.
Yeah.
Then to Alexis, and I like it like that, to represent my New Yorican people.
Yeah.
In that story. So I was trying to show people, look, we're here as Latinos. We're ready to go. But the issue was the industry wasn't ready yet. So every one of those projects ran up against some sort of a roadblock to commercial success. You heard what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Not cultural success, obviously.
Yeah.
Shit, the other night at Cal State LA, dude, it was crazy where I was like, what the hell is going on? And this movie's 30 years old. But you see the multi-generations of raza that have come up with it.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you experience this after 30 years.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
It's multi-generational, and yet there's still an entire audience. Internationally, when you guys go travel internationally, it's like another wave of popularity.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I go, look, Blood In, Blood Out came out and was squashed here as Bound by Honor, right?
Yeah.
But out there, it came out as Sangre por Sangre.
Oh, yeah. It blew up.
It blew up.
Yeah, and everybody
And
knows.
now you go to Japan. They were telling a story the other day about a Japanese tourist who was at Cinco Puntos, right? And Raymond Cruz, who plays Chewy, was going, I was sitting at Cinco Puntos having a tamale, and this guy didn't recognize me, but it was a Japanese tourist, and he was dressed all
straight
the way.
up,
Dude.
yeah.
He had his Pendleton, he had his khakis, and he's posing in front of El Pino, right? And Raymond Cruz, he goes, hey, ask him, and the guy didn't even speak English. He just asked the translator, hey, ask him why he's dressed like that. Oh, I love Chicano culture, I love El Pino, all of this, right? And he said to him, okay, but why are you dressed like that? He goes, well, I love the movie Blood In, Blood Out. And he goes, really? So then he found out who he was, and he was blown away. So he said, in Japan, there are enormous groups of Blood In, Blood Out fans. In Japan. Now, I know they're into lowriding culture. I've known that for many decades. They're into Chicano culture. But to specifically say, hey, we love this story, we love this, and we're going to go look at the places that we saw in this film across the world. We're gonna go visit El
man.
Pino. We're
That's-
gonna
that's
visit
crazy.
Cinco Puntos.
That's beautiful when it has an effect like that.
Yeah, and fame is like that in Europe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of people grew up to that and were inspired by seeing y'all as kids, like coming up and like, you know, working on the craft as it lays out in the school and dealing with life. But it inspired other kids to like want to go to those schools and
Yeah.
try to be that.
Yeah.
I mean, Tupac was one of those, you know, people who attended
Yeah.
performing arts school and many others in the game.
Isai Morales
Yeah.
went to performing arts.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people that are successful actors now got their start at a high school of performing arts.
Gives them
Yeah.
the tools.
Yeah.
Hey man, salute to all the performing arts schools and congratulations on 30 year on both. I just want to say this: you want to watch the rest of this, go to www.BREALTV and catch the rest. All right, and make sure you subscribe, and leave the likes. You know, pop them off, do all the things. So let me ask you this: was there like an actor or singer, entertainer, aside from your parents, aside somebody in your family that made you think I could do this, or that made you want to do this in terms of, you know, seeking out being an actor or entertainer?
Yeah, well, I'm into the classics. My grandmother raised me on Mexican cinema, you know, cinema de oro.
Yeah.
So I grew up with Antonio Aguilar, and, you know, and Pedro Infante, and Cantinflas for sure. Tintan was an incredible performer. You know, those dudes were the first pachucos.
Right.
Right, Tintan. So when you see their style, dude, and in San Antonio, it's a very bilingual town, and it was a theater town back in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
So a lot of these cats in their national tours across the border would not only hit up Madison Square Garden, but would love places like San Antonio, Burque, Los Angeles was a big stop for them because they had their audiences, their bilingual audiences here, the Mexican-American community. So to me, I grew up watching those vatos along with my dad performing live with his band.
Right.
And then performing alongside Grammy Award-winning Flaco Jimenez, you know, when he was young. So in the scene, and these were the beginnings of the Tejano scene that later would create Selena in the 90s.
Yeah.
But at that time in the 70s, it was Conjunto, it was Tex-Mex, and it was very Mexican.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was very bilingual, very Mexican. So the culture was never alien. It was never, the border to us was a place you cross so that you could get to Nuevo Laredo from Laredo, right?
It ain't what it is today.
It ain't what it is today. TJ was, man, we used in the 80s, we used to go to TJ all the time like nothing.
Or Ensenada.
Ensenada, Rosarito, right? Especially all the surf culture and the coast culture here. That was directly influenced by Mexico. So to us, that cultura was never a bifurcation, baby. It was never separation.
Yeah, no.
So all of that kind of just influenced the feeling of what my identity was and what was missing. Because one thing is, when I watched movies, that was missing in American movies.
Yeah.
So I could see Pepe Serna, but he wasn't doing what I know he could do.
Yeah.
You know, now every once in a while, Ricardo Montalban
Yeah.
was doing a lot of stuff that you could say, okay, he's representing.
You know who was also dope was Trinidad Silva.
Oh my God.
Rest
man.
in peace.
My man, rest in
That
peace.
dude
Totally.
did so many things. I
Totally.
mean, like as far as hood movies,
Yeah.
he did what was it called? Walking Tall.
Walking Tall.
He did Colors. He played he was also on Hill Street
Blues
as a Chicago gang member.
Yeah.
All anything that had to do with like the hood, the neighborhood, the Chicano community, whatever. That dude played in a lot of them.
Now, being lucky enough, again, to have started in teatro in the barrio, right? When I came to LA, when I would go to New York, I would go into the theater scene, right? He was big in the theater scene
that
in
dude
Los
was-
Angeles, bro.
he was a dope actor.
He was a pesado.
Yeah.
And the other thing in theater is you get to play as a Chicano, as a Mexican American, you get to play other parts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
get to
because
do
he played a
theater,
lot of
you get to-
different things.
So he was a heavy. So, that was the good thing about being able to be multi-leveled. By the time I got into the industry, I'd already been doing it since I was 5 years old. I was on stage.
I think if that dude hadn't passed away, he would have been in one of the 2 movies.
Oh, are you kidding
He
me,
had
bro?
to
Are
be,
you
right?
kidding me?
He had to be,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, man. And you know, the truth is, when I saw the movie the other night, and even when I see American Me, I see that a lot of what we represented, because in American Me, the beautiful thing, what Eddie did is collected a lot of Chicano actors that I knew that weren't getting enough work.
Right.
Because I knew them from, 20 years, 10
yeah.
years. So to see them actually working was beautiful, right? So when I see those films, I recognize that, wow, we were representing a lot of people that, again, like you said, didn't make it to that point,
Yeah.
and would have been part of one of those projects, one of those legacies.
That's true.
So there's stuff, we're celebrating 40 years of their stuff,
Yeah.
50 years of Trini's contributions.
Yeah,
and
for
work.
sure.
So I think, and it's exactly what you said, those spots, Ricardo, Anthony Quinn in the old days, the Mexicanos on that end, and then people like Trini, even seeing Eric Estrada back in the 70s was like a big, and he was explaining to me the other day, he goes, that character was originally Italian.
Yeah, Poncherello.
He was Poncherelli.
Yeah,
and I
Poncherello.
said, if I'm going to do it, you're changing it to Poncherello, and I'm a Latino. I said, get down. So, those are the vatos that I was going, okay, if I ever get there, this is what I'm going to do. But realistically, I was looking, like I said, at my dad and his music, his contemporaries, the vatos in the barrio. I had an older homeboy named Rene Rivera, and he was an upperclassman. But he was from my barrio, from the south side, but he was a badass actor in high school. So I looked up to him, and he actually got me into the local college theater because they had built a new theater and they were asking for some more representation.
That's where you got your
And
foundation.
he goes,
at,
hey,
huh?
my little homeboy Jesse Borrego.
That's
So
dope.
I always say, Renee, you got me started, bro, because if
That's
I
dope.
hadn't gone to college and found a safe place to develop my craft in a college setting, as a young Chicano, by the time I came to LA and auditioned for Fame,
You
dude,
were
I
already
wouldn't have been
ready. You were already
I was
prepped.
ready. Yeah.
That's dope. Was there ever a role that you turned down that you regretted not doing?
Oh man, let me think about it. A lot of times
The shots we didn't take.
Yeah, not really, because sometimes successfully I look at those films because they're out there.
Yeah.
All right, the ones you pass on, and the girlfriend you broke up with, she winds up becoming the millionaire, right?
Right.
Wait a minute. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, what's a movie that
Jokes, man.
that you turned down that blew up and you didn't think it was gonna do?
Yeah, it's tough because the things I did instead of those were always much deeper.
Right.
They were either a theater piece that had to do with something serious, or I was going through something else that whatever I was working on was important.
You wanted it to mean something.
And we were just talking about that, some roles that I let go that were big time. You know, Ghost, She-Devil,
Damn.
Dances with Wolves.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Kevin wanted me for one of the Native brothers, because he knew that I had Apache blood in me, but also he loved my audition. And those, the Native actors that played the leads, they were the ones that were supposed to do it.
Yeah.
So, but at that time there was an offer of a much bigger piece, a much bigger play that had to do with a whole lot more deeper stuff.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and did that instead. But now when I see it, I go, oh man, I could have been there hanging out with the fellas.
The what ifs.
The what ifs.
I already know.
Yeah,
I already
so,
know. The shots we didn't
the shots
take.
we didn't take. They always say, right? You always regret the things you didn't do.
Sometimes, like if what we committed to not do that ended up working the way we
Look at it.
You know what I mean?
And that's what I've found. Every
Yeah.
time I go, man, I shit. Then I go, but what did I do instead? Oh man,
But yeah, if
there's no way I couldn't have done the screens in Minneapolis.
that's
That's
the only time I'll look at it like as if I turn this down and do this and this turned this
Yeah,
shit right.
yeah.
That's
Nah, but
That's-
how many? Oh,
but you
thank
could
God
never
we
know
can
that.
count those on one hand. Man.
Yeah,
If you're lucky,
because
you
everything's a
count
gamble, really. Anything you choose, same thing with movies as it relates to music, right?
Yeah.
They may hit you up for this role, and it may sound awesome, and
Yeah.
I could really feel this character, I could play that, and then the movie doesn't end up being what it's supposed to be. Same thing with music. We may like go into the studio and be like, yo, this is the shit. We pop this off, it's gonna blow up, and then it comes out and it's like, you know, you just never know.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, you know, you might have a feeling, but other times it's a gamble. So you got to choose wisely.
Yeah,
And sometimes,
exactly.
you know, you got two scenarios and you got to pick one, and you know, you got to gamble.
I'll tell you this
on it.
much: if you always err on the side of cultura and arte, authenticity and truth,
Right.
Because the money will come, the profit will come, and it's always that battle, dude. It's always the battle.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a commercial success, or you know what I mean? Is it going to fail? Hey, Blood In, Blood Out was a failure. You know that. In the Disney books, it's a $14 million loss.
Right.
Because they tanked it. They said, we don't care. We don't care. We don't want to put this movie out. It's too hot right now. The riots had just happened. We ain't releasing this thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're going to send it straight to VHS. Think about it. In those days, VHS was death.
Death. Yeah.
That was artistic death.
True that.
Yeah. You know
But
what
you know, that's not how it flipped, though. It flipped into a cult classic,
No,
which they didn't anticipate.
didn't
It was an
anticipate.
underdog film.
It was an underdog
And-
film
and it
that
flipped.
became something major.
Major.
So at that point, you just got to kind of go, wow, all right, it took 30 years. Thank God I'm still alive to see
Yeah.
it. You know, Adan Hernandez, rest in peace, the artist, he was the inspiration for this book. That's why he's one of the authors on the book, because he not only
So
did
you
they use
played
his
him?
art, I played a part of his life.
You
Yeah,
paid-
really, I was doing a
It
combo.
was inspired by him.
It was artistically, it was inspired by him, but in terms of a life, really, I was representing people like my father,
Right.
People who had this mastery of their art, but because of the circumstances of the barrio
Yeah.
that led to a substance abuse issue, which
Yeah.
never should be criminalized. And that was the great thing that I liked about the Crucito character, is they didn't send him to prison,
Right.
because that's really what happens.
Yeah. And
Realistically,
that's you
yeah.
get institutionalized.
You get
there.
in, yeah, because there's nothing but carga in there. There's nothing but pedo in there, because that's how they control. That's another method of control.
It's a magnet.
Yeah, it's a magnet. And you know, that was something that they kind of talked about in the drug war that was being fought within La Onda.
Yeah.
That was another cool thing you talked about. There was a lot of information in Blood In, Blood Out.
Yeah, right at
that
the
they-
beginning.
Yeah, that they but it was kind of tipping the audience into this unknown secretive world.
Yeah, it was giving people context to
Just a
understand.
pedacito
Yeah.
of the pedo. But I mean, in Montana's words, you heard why it was like that, and that was the great thing about
Yeah.
Kiki's performance as
Yeah, he killed
Montana. Is he talked about the social pressure, right? The pressure, the systematic social pressure on a population like that, which is really a slave population when you think about it. Los torcidos are a slave population.
yeah.
And that's why they're allowed to act like that. That's where there's that fringe, and groups were able to take advantage of that and become its own power and entity. And really, those stories, those two films are about that story, about how did this happen? Well, it happened because you guys weren't minding the chicken coop. You were just throwing everybody in there and seeing how many of them can we get.
Yep.
Because once you get them there, they can't vote. You know, it was a wild thing.
Yeah.
Couple of elections ago, my brother told my dad, "Hey, Dad, he model citizen. My dad, many years as a senior director of senior services, well-known maestro, musician, got all kinds of awards. You know what I mean? So he's sitting there, and my brother goes, "Hey, I'm gonna take you to vote because you're elderly." He goes, "I can't vote, mijo."
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, you take that for granted.
Yeah. A lot of people don't even get that.
And,
Like it's
yeah.
a privilege, and it like because of
No.
the criminal record
And
that you
half
might
our
have.
brothers
you got
are going through that.
If you got a
dude.
felony, they'll take
Half
that
our
shit.
brothers are going through that
Yeah.
for something effed up.
Well, they started that shit in the 60s and 70s. They wanted to take all the uneducated, they wanted to take a lot of educated homies off the street so they couldn't inspire the younger ones to also get
Exactly.
the education so that they could call things out
Yeah.
on what was wrong with our society and what the community should do about it.
Yeah.
they wanted to silence those voices because there's more money in keeping people down than it is raising them
If
up.
we ever do a part 2, that's got to be an aspect that I would push for. That we push for that idea that a lot of this stuff, when you look at these documentaries, right? There's one called, is it Green? And there's another one called, but it's about how in the 70s and 80s there was a rise in, you know, droga and substance in the neighborhood, you know. And even my dad, when I would ask him, I'd go, hey man, you know, was life tough for you? You know, I know my abuelita was a single mom, is it? And he goes, no. He goes, it's weird, but it was just available and it was cheap.
Yeah.
He goes, you could get, you know, you could get a hit for cheap, and you know, te sonabas all day with the buddies. So it was like marijuana. It was like liquor. You could get it cheap. It was cheaper actually.
Yeah.
So next thing you know,
That was by design.
you're hooked. By design.
That's by design.
By design. And now you have all these weird concoctions now that are even more addicting. So these
Yeah.
kids in the street are hooked on this stuff that they don't
have a chance.
They don't have a chance, dude. They're within a week, they're done. So, you know, you tell me that that's not by design when you have these billion-dollar lawsuits that these people that created that whole opioid thing, and they're able to pay it because they can afford it.
Yeah.
But all they're getting is a fine.
All they're getting is a
When
fine.
you see a
That's crazy
new
shit.
10-year new generation of tecatos, let's call them. It ain't heroin, but they're tecatos because that's the
It's
mentality.
opioid, yeah.
So, you know, that was something that we barely touched on in Crucito's character, but I wanted to take a deeper
You guys
dive
did.
into it.
You guys talked about it like the moment you got out of the hospital. And you're talking to I can't remember the character's name, but you know, fucking your brother.
Paco.
Paco, that's right. Telling him that the pills that they gave you, they're okay, but
They're hitting me with morphine.
the morphine was
They're already
the
giving me
ticket.
morphine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later
that was
on,
it.
the frustration of I'm just painting for rich people. I'm not painting my raza. I'm painting just decorations.
Yeah.
So that frustration was a real frustration that I knew from my father's musical career and from Adan when I would sit with him in the studio. Because
give you the
remember,
game.
in the early 90s, dude, Chicano art was still outsider art.
Yeah, pretty much.
Bro, only in the 21st century have they started celebrating Chicano art. And there still is only one museum that I know of that defines that.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 100 years of resistance art that's been outsider art for that long. So that's got to be frustrating for generations of artists like us who weren't able to get a 30-year legacy of some sort, and their art just faded into obscurity. You know, so I grew up with frustrated artists, dude, frustrated masters who were doing stuff for tourists. You know, we're playing, playing mariachi music at the local Mexican restaurant because our music was not commercialized, even though we knew we had an audience.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to do, you know, people ask, why is Crucito so multi-layered? I go, all I can tell you is that from what I knew of the industry and my chance, I had one chance to play an authentic Chicano character. I don't know if they were ever going to write this character again.
It was solid.
You know?
I gotta
And
say.
so, I had to throw the kitchen sink in there and throw in caló and,
You did a great job on that, man.
and throw a pasta up in there and el palito de abuelito.
Hey, let me ask you this: when you were doing Fame, you had a lot of scenes with Janet Jackson, right? That was like she played your girl, right?
Beautiful lady. No, she was, Nia Peoples was my girl.
Nia Peoples.
Nia Peoples was my. But Janet she was solid because we were the three new kids.
Yeah, you guys were
So
the
they were
three.
always throwing us in there together, yeah.
Was Nia Peoples' boyfriend throwing you side looks on the romantic scenes?
She was married, bro. She was married. She got
Was her-
married
was
right
her
before
husband
the
on
show.
you, son?
He was looking.
He had to
was
be, right?
looking. Yeah, he was looking.
I mean, you guys were young.
I think she was the alpha though. So Nia was like, go sit in the dressing room. You ain't gonna come in here on the.
There'll be no fucking up of the scenes.
I'll tell you this much. That's when I learned film though, because I came from the theater world, right? So that was my first.
That's a different transition.
So
right
we
there.
do these things called dailies back in the day, where you'd sit in the room kind of like the smoke room, right?
And run the scene.
And we'd see on a big screen what we had shot the day before.
Right.
This was at lunch. We'd watch dailies, right? So I'd go to check it out, but I'd never seen myself in a close-up like that.
Is it daily to see if you had to reshoot it or dub the vocal or something like that?
Kind of. It was their assessment. It was like what we do in playback now.
Right.
Back then they didn't really have playback because we were shooting on film.
Right.
So all they would do is shoot it, negative.
Right.
Process it, get you approved the next day.
Yeah.
And that's what we'd see, dailies. So at that point they'd say, oh, that sucked. But we were on a time crunch, so very rarely did they do a reshoot. But yeah, you could assess it, right? Well, I had never been, so they started inviting us. So I'd go, and we had just done a big old makeout scene between me and Nia, right? And I asked Nia, I said, look, I'm a method actor. Are you okay? You know, because I know you're married. So, and Nia tells me, she goes, I'm a method actress too. Just go ahead, you know. So I said, well, we're supposed to be in love. So, you know, Jesse Velasquez as a lover, not a fighter. So.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, where did I steal that line from? I'm a lover, not a fighter. You being a musical guy, I got you on this one because nobody ever gets it. Do you remember the Girl Is Mine, Michael Jackson and
And
Paul McCartney?
Yeah.
The girl is mine.
Mine,
the
mine.
doggone girl is mine.
Mine,
so at the
mine.
end, they're going back and forth.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, she said she'd be my forever girl. And he's like, well, really? And, you know, and Paul's kind of like, you know, I'll throw down for her.
Yeah.
And Michael goes, well, I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that was my ode to MJ and to Miss J there at the. No, but you know the good thing is, Janet was so beautiful, but she was very shy because she had just turned 18. She was just coming out from under her father's wing, and I tell you now that I think back, she was already conceiving of Control. So if you listen to Control, that's her liberation.
Right.
You know, that's her liberation
sure.
track, man.
Yeah.
You know, so all of those songs are talking about her breaking away from that, working with Terry and Jimmy, and, you know, just getting away from.
And she did it.
You know what I'm saying? But I realize now that while she was doing Fame, she was already breaking away.
The wheels were already in motion.
And you know, we'd have conversations because we were close, and I was so proud because she told me one time, she said, hey, my mother says she loves the way you sing. She loves your voice. I was like, oh, Mama Jackson. And she was so nice because she was always with her, dude, because she was the youngest cast member on our set.
Yeah, so somebody had to be with her.
And that set had some crazy people. It was the crazy 80s, homie. And Fame was like, we were rock stars in New York.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to this whole wild world, and Janet just wasn't ready for it because she was very sheltered, right? And she wasn't ready yet to be that Janet Jackson. So her mother was always with her, right? But in the conversations we would have as we were working, she would always say that she was trying to break away. She goes, yeah, I'm doing this show because my father is a fan of this show, you know? And I'd always tell her, go, well, you know what I mean? Do your thing, girl. I'm doing my thing. That's why I'm here. But if this ain't your thing, you gotta fly. You gotta go. So when I saw all of that Control and everything that happened afterwards, I was like,
it all made sense.
Oh, man. She was already breaking out. She was busting out. Incredible. So to me, I always that's the kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was rubbing elbows with greatness.
You got to see it from.
I got to see it from that perspective, you know.
That's
So
awesome.
all praise. I think that show, but the show did the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Because those 3 years that
It's
I
a
was
launch
there
pad.
was film school, because Debbie Allen was starting to direct.
Yeah.
And she was kind of like my godmother. So I'd go and I'd ask her, hey, what are you doing? And what's this? And she taught me about film coverage and movement. So she was already teaching me my film school. So those 3 years, by the time Fame came, dude, by the time Blood In, Blood Out came, I was the star on that set. You know, Billy Bob, Benjamin, all these vatos were looking at me going, oh, that's Jesse from Fame.
You had a deeper resume.
Yeah. So to me, I was kind of like the spiritual leader. I was like, look, we're going to do this and we're going to make it authentic. And that's why when you look at all their little performances, bro, they're deep. Delroy Lindo, Ving Rhames, Benjamin, what Benjamin
Dude.
Bratt did, that was his stardom.
Yeah.
That got him Law and Order.
Yeah.
The producers of Law and Order saw that and went, okay, this dude can be the star of our TV, our new star of our TV show.
Yeah.
You know, that was
I mean,
already a hit.
A lot of people went on to do some things after.
Heavy.
That, for sure.
Raymond Cruz, you know,
Yeah.
Valente. So, to me, even though the movie didn't hit at the time it was supposed to, because it should have won Academy Awards, bro. When you look at it, they were, if Disney had pushed it and politics, because you know that them awards is all politics.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all politicking.
Same
But
as
when
the
you have
Grammys,
something,
yeah.
when you get something, you want your politicking to get behind it, especially when it's real, right? When what we're doing. So that to me was the closest real thing I did. That if the studio had pushed it, it would have gotten nominated for something.
Absolutely.
If not for, you know, best screenplay, Jimmy Baca, best director, Taylor Hackford for sure, best, you know, Bruno Robeo, production design.
Yeah.
All Latinos, dude. Maya's Rubeo. You know, Maya Rubeo is big.
Disney
now,
just
costume
didn't,
designer.
They just didn't want to
Started
attach
it.
their name to the shit, and that's why they didn't get behind it the way
Bro,
they
it was
should.
cultural wars. When
Yeah.
I showed you that book. In the back of that book, there's that LA Times article that came out last year, and that vato Carlos really got it. You know, Carlos Aguilar, he got the multi levels of why it didn't succeed in its time.
Right.
Because the film is good, stands on its own. Taylor Hackford's a great filmmaker, great director. The elements are the shit. No one was talking about that in those elements, other than films like American Me, and then later the ones that came, Mi Familia. All of those, dude, we're all part of the same
yeah.
movement.
For sure.
You know, and this is a movement that people like Edward James Olmos, people like Pepe Serna, people like Lupe Ontiveros, Enrique Castillo. These are fights that, you know, Trini Silva, they had been fighting these fights for 20, 30 years. So for us to be able to do it, and that was my thing. I recognized this. People didn't know that, but I said, okay, I'm carrying all their legacy with me. So now we got two of them. Psh, I was happy.
Yeah.
I was really happy.
Hey, you know, it's a cult classic, and it's gonna forever continue to be one.
Oh,
And
man.
salute to that. And
now they got a book.
Yeah, now they got a book.
Hat and Beard Press has a book that they put up, and it's out, man. You saw the book. It's this thick.
Yeah.
It's got pictures, photos. It's got all the art of Adan Hernandez. It's got original poetry by Jimmy Baca, just spitting original poetry in it. He read some of it the other night at Cal State. Ooh.
That's dope.
Brought
So he's gonna
the
be
house
doing
down.
readings from the book then.
I hope so. I think that would be the next thing. Is to
You
do a
should
book
do that
tour.
if he
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
You know
Oh,
what
for
I'm
sure.
saying?
Yeah.
Go with it.
Oh my God!
Come
I'm gonna
on.
tell him,
Hey.
look out! If you don't
Hey.
do it, I'm gonna read it, Jimmy.
Hey,
Jimmy,
for sure.
Jimmy.
Hey, I want to thank you for jumping into the Smokebox, man, and sit
You know
with
how
us.
we do it. We didn't.
It's
Did we
all
get to where
love.
we were going?
Yeah,
Hey,
we're here now.
Hey, are we parked? Yeah, I think we're parked.
Yeah.
No. What's the line? Am I driving all
Am I
right?
driving
Am
all
I
right?
driving okay? I think we're parked.
That shit was hilarious. Salute to Cheech and Chong. And salute to you, Jesse, man. Thank you for jumping in. And
too, big.
let them know where to find you, brother.
All the way, Jesse Borrego official. Also go to Sangre por Arte on Facebook and Instagram. That's where we'll be doing a lot of the where we're gonna be, what we're gonna do, and then go to Hat and Beard Press, Hat and Barba Press, Hat and Beard Press for the Blood In Blood Out book. You purchase it, bring it to me. I'll hit the firma on it wherever I'm at. So, you know what I'm saying?
That's what's up.
Boom.
All day.
Dr. Green Thumb.
Jesse
Que viva
Borrego.
Dr. Green Thumb forever, carnales.
That's right. Salute to all y'all watching us. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and get down with my man Jesse Borrego. Every time, man, you see his name, represent. And this has been another Smokebox by BREALTV and Dr. Green Thumb. Salute. Also, we smoking some black cherry gelato on these funky field tips, in case you wanted to know.
I like my gelato, vato.
That's right. My man Jesse Borrego up in here.
I made it out of the smoke box. Jesse Borrego, Vatos Locos forever.
Taking pictures of you, taking pictures. We gotta see who's behind it.
Yeah, never had anybody sign like that, huh? Stop it. That's what the Smokebox makes you do. Makes you get artistic. Man, beautiful conversation. That's how two maestros talk, right? They chop it up and they Smokebox it up. Boom.
Got the heart of a lion, soul of a titan, mind of a genius, with fly with the heighten. All your senses is senseless, resistant, relentless. It's what they call you when your grind is endless. Let's get this.
They say I'm psycho, I move weight like lipo. Got a big crib like Michael, out the window with a rifle. My wrist game on light show. I'm backstage with white hoes. I got pre-rolls in that red cup, that's key lime, don't like those.
Got a full